We know that today is all about visions. It's about looking into the future, and that's exactly what we're going to do on this panel. Future challenges in the beverage industry is what we will be talking about. Severin, Sven, and Markus, you already set the tone when you spoke of challenges earlier today, and we're going to circle back round and dive a bit deeper on these challenges with not just anyone, but we're really excited that some of our most esteemed strategic partners, some of our most valued partners, were able to join us here for this panel. And that means that we're going to be hearing from some of the world's most influential food and beverage companies. That's why we're so thrilled and excited. Plus, each of these are long-standing partners of Krones with a very long history, successful history of collaboration with us. So we're really glad that they could be here. I would say, since we have a lot to discuss, let's hop right in. Allow me to do the introductions, gentlemen. First of all, we have Roman Manthey, Vice President, Supply Chain System Value Creation, The Coca-Cola Company. Thank you so much for joining us. Roman is an E2E supply chain leader with experience in sales and marketing, focused on synergizing global E2E supply chain efficiencies and process across companies to drive value whilst inspiring people engagement. Let's hear it for Roman. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
And moving along, we have on the far end Alan Bunteman, Vice President of Engineering and Innovation at Niagara Bottling. Now, Alan is a seasoned leader with nearly 3 decades of experience in manufacturing and operations, driving technical excellence and innovation across asset management, R&D, and systems engineering. Thank you for being here, Alan. Also, we welcome Matthias Eisner, Scientific Director at Yili Innovation Center Europe, a driving force in dairy innovation, combining deep scientific expertise with hands-on leadership in shaping the future of food processing and product development. Welcome, Matthias.
Thank you.
On behalf of Krones, you three just spoke, but I'm going to do the proper introductions one more time, if you'll bear with me, for anyone who wasn't around for the keynote that we heard earlier today. So first of all, to my right, it's my pleasure to introduce member of the executive board of Krones, a man with passion to lift the industry to the next level of efficiency and sustainability, Markus Tischer. Thank you for being here, Markus. Moving along, we have Head of Corporate Research and Development at Krones, and this is a visionary mind who relentlessly challenges the status quo to spark innovation and deliver impact across the value chain. Thank you for joining us, Sven Fischer. And last but not least, we have Head of Corporate Digitalization and Automation at Krones and Managing Director at Syskron, a man who drives smart solutions with passion for technology and a strong sense of what really matters in everyday life. Welcome, Severin Diepold. All right, so now we really need to get to business, right? Not much time left. So first of all, Markus, Sven, and Severin, you already did open. We're going to circle back around, as mentioned, to some of those challenges that we heard about earlier in the keynote. And one of the most pressing issues of our time and age is, of course, sustainability. Here at drinktec, we dedicated an entire day only to sustainability. That's how important it is to us. We know that sustainability is no longer something that is simply nice to have, right? It's a central strategic goal, especially when it comes to global companies operating in diverse markets, as our partners are as well. So let's begin by looking at your individual sustainability strategies, gentlemen. Roman, let's start with you. How do you manage to implement global voluntary environmental goals consistently, even though we're seeing so many different markets and so many different countries that you're handling?
Well, that's a great question, Yasmina, because obviously for us at the Coca-Cola Company, building a more sustainable business is how we operate. So since several decades, actually, there are a lot of anecdotes actually when it started and where we are now. But I will spare those for later if anybody wants to ask. We have been working really hard in terms of data science, data-backed and science-based facts and insights in order to build our strategies for the long term. And long term is a key word here as well, because you have to set long-term targets in order to achieve actually the short-term goals and directions we want to take together as a system. And I'm speaking for the Coca-Cola system in this regard, because think about our complexity. We've got more than 200 countries where we operate in, more than 200 franchisees, and then we're working, especially in sustainability, with thousands of partners. So it's quite complex, as you can imagine. But it's a cornerstone, actually, on how we operate in order to drive our sustainability targets. So, in a nutshell, it's bigger than us. So we need an ecosystem of partners to drive and replicate what we're doing across the world. And thanks to you, Krones, I think you're supporting us in that, and you're one of the thousands, actually. So, coming to the what. So, as I said, setting long-term targets is a mandatory. And we have to work as a system to really have a common message, stay true to our North Star, and we've set targets in water, emission, and packaging. So in water, we are returning actually 100% of the finished products which we have used in the world to the communities and to nature. We've achieved this target already since 2015. Now we've added additional target of about the 200 high-stressed water areas in the world, where we will return more than 100% back to the community. So on emissions, we're following the 1.5 degrees pathway to reduce emissions with a 2019 baseline. On packaging, our aims toward 2035 is to recycle or return 35 to 40% of the materials in our primary packaging, and to collect 70 to 75% of bottles and cans we put into the markets. So in 2024, we are already now at a 99% recyclability of our materials, so very close to the final 100% mark we've set earlier on. And also, we already are recycling 28% of our primary packaging, including 18% use of rPET. We are collecting globally 65% of the bottles we put into the market and either refill them or recycle them. So, as you can see, we are already quite far advanced, but it's a daily and basically a daily, hourly work of our sustainability teams. And when I say sustainability teams, it's embedded in our culture. So everybody is part of the sustainability team of our 600,000 employees worldwide in the system. What are the challenges in packaging? And I'm going a little bit deeper into the complexity now. Think about it. You've got 200 markets, 200 different collection systems, definitely, minimum. Recycling, regulations, all different. And we have to navigate through that. So we set global targets and execute them locally, because you need to give the local flexibility to drive it. But what's very important, we need to stay nimble in learning from each other faster. And that's where we're looking not only internally to be faster, we're looking at the partners we work in to support us in that endeavor. So in a nutshell, aligning and collaborating for us as a system is absolutely mandatory to achieve our targets. So I'm very pleased to see on the show and the industry the advancements we are seeing.
Thank you so much, Roman. When it comes to collaborating, we saw some vigorous nodding over here. Gentlemen, if you ever feel like you would like to add something, then feel free to butt in. I'm just going to move straight along because, Roman, you did touch emissions, you spoke of packaging, but also water. And I think this is a really interesting take because, Alan, if I may move along to you, water is not just a very scarce resource, but it is your core product. So that sounds very, very challenging. How do you balance growth with water availability?
Yeah, absolutely, and it is a challenge. It really starts at the beginning. So even before we drop in a line, break ground, it really starts with the diligence that we do, the work that we do with the communities that we're identifying where we want to either grow to or expand in. We have internal hydrologists. We work with third-party consultants. Most importantly, we work with the communities themselves to make sure that water, that particular resource, has availability to not only sustain what we would like to do in the future, but more importantly, to sustain also the community that it's already providing for. Sometimes the water's available, the infrastructure may not be. And so the next step is to make sure that we're working with the community to identify any infrastructure-related opportunities. Often we help support that local community with engineering services or even sometimes capital outlay for lift stations, wastewater, pumping stations for the water supply. So once we have that and we feel good that our growth plan and the community growth plan can be serviced, we move on to what the fun part is for me, which is the site design, the building design, and then equipment design. And so up front, we deploy a number of different innovations, high efficiency reverse osmosis systems, vibrational separation systems, and then you go right all the way to the filler, and that's where you start to look at how do I make sure that every drop of that water is getting into the bottle, right? And we want to make sure that we're doing a great job with our maintenance. We deploy condition-based and predictive-based maintenance now, where we're identifying issues at the filler that we can take care of before we see any spillage and any losses. And so we have a target, IBWA, a ratio of 1.3. We feel really great that all of our core water plants in our network are right at that 1.3 or even lower. Still lots of work to do, I think, in the industry, including at Niagara for beverage sites, where there's just some other demands around CIPs and things of that nature, but we're tackling those as well through some additional technology around condition-based monitoring. But really it's from start to finish, so from site selection all the way through design, all the way to getting that product into the bottle. And we're really looking hard for every area where we see a leakage or a loss. And that's how we look. At the end of the day, no water, no business, right? And so it's extremely important to us to make sure that we're being responsible with that critical resource.
No water.
Go ahead. No water, no life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
And I've heard at the beer halls, no water, no beer.
Even worse.
Yeah.
Alan, thank you so much for sharing these interesting insights. And if we move along to Yili, but let me just say I have the feeling, I'm getting the notion, we're going to speak about technology in just a minute as well if we have enough time, and getting the vibe that you're going to have a thing or two to say Absolutely. When it comes to the tech side of things. But sticking to sustainability for just another moment and moving along to Matthias and to Yili, you operate in such a rapidly ever-changing market. How do you integrate sustainability into your production processes? How scalable are the approaches that you're currently using?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Yes, for us, our core market is China, with quite a bit of Southeast Asia around. And so we have set out a sustainability strategy a couple of years back, and that is strongly based on global trends as well as local policies and regulations of each market we operate in. And that makes it quite different and tricky to operate, because for each market you need different solutions. So now, in general, we are a dairy company, so our main ingredient is milk, and this is where, if you look at life cycle analysis, the biggest challenge is. Though in the dairy industry, over 90% of the footprint is on the farm. And this is why we are addressing carbon emissions from our livestock, but also manure puddles on pasture and reducing the methane emissions from them in New Zealand, for example. But we don't stop there. We go to processing. So we are working on electrifying our plants. We have a fully electric plant in Indonesia. We have installed the world's first fully electric spray dryer in the Netherlands 2 or 3 years back. To really move away from fossil fuels and be able to use electricity, which of course can be sustainable. And these are technologies which are in there, which can be rolled out to more and more zero carbon factories globally, and we are doing a couple of them every year. So on packaging side, of course, we do have similar issues as everybody with recycling, so we are reducing consequently virgin plastics, fossil-based plastics, and especially also non-recyclable plastics like PVC or PS, where we actively look for alternatives for solutions with similar technical performance. And we don't stop there when it comes to sustainability, because we don't have a carbon-only view, so we are looking at biodiversity of the plants and pastures, at recovery of nutrients from side streams so that they don't go to the waste but come back into the food system.
Thank you so much, Matthias. I can imagine it must be a huge task to also, in turn, have to challenge your partners in the dairy industry to, inspire them to hop up on that sustainability train.
Yes, it's a challenge throughout the whole chain, and you have to partner really from the fertilizers and the feed down to packaging, consumer, logistics.
Wow, yeah. Well, if you'd like to follow up, let me just repeat the invitation. I think Roman spoke out that everyone will be around for conversation after the panel. But moving along for now, gentlemen, since time is limited, we're going to circle back around to the tech side of things, right? Because technology, speaking of sustainability, technology itself is a driver of efficiency, of course, key to future viability. And all the challenges we've just spoken of, they make all the more clear how important innovative solutions are and are going to be in the future. They need to be flexible, they need to be safe at the same time, but also economically viable. So how do we make that happen is the question. And I'm curious to hear how you all as our partners are mastering this balancing act. Matthias, can I stick to you for a moment? Because I'd like to know which technologies have had the greatest impact on your production and or on the supply chain processes, let's say these past 3 years?
Yeah, so if you look at the past couple of years, then the biggest is actually in data. So it's digitalization, automation, and availability of data from all over the supply chain, and the increasing possibilities to work with big and complex data sets, so to really turn them into actionable insights for all different abstraction levels, because you need to provide insight for strategy and management as well as for the line operator. And this is still an ongoing journey. We are not perfect there yet, but we are moving ahead to really make use of this data to turn it into actionable insights which really deliver value hour on hour, and rather than only in the annual strategy process.
Thank you, Matthias. Now, Alan, here's your moment. You are considered a pioneer in automation, so we need to speak about that technology. But perhaps you can tell us, for better understanding, how do you implement technology or new technologies quickly but also comprehensively? Not everybody is the pioneer, the expert you are yourself.
Right. So, as a baseline, we've been very fortunate. Ton of growth the last 15 to 20 years. So when you walk into one of our facilities, you don't always know where you are because they look the same, they're designed the same, very, very similar equipment partnerships over the years. So what that does allow us for is, whether it's process, automation, really any type of innovation, a vast majority of our facilities are immediately available to be implemented. So that's step one, that kind of, I'll call it an ease of baseline. Everyone loves best practice and innovation ideation. Most people even love getting it out and disseminating it to their sister plants. Not everyone loves adopting new innovation if it's not their idea, right? So the way we go about it is, and we stole this idea after a few talks with our friends at Heineken, is a lighthouse approach. And so we've identified about 6 of our facilities. We've collaborated with those folks. We've provided them a dedicated resource all about change management, all about providing our teams feedback on new innovation. So all of our pilot programs go into one of these 6 sites, and then we expand it to all of the 6 sites. We continue that feedback loop, that iteration, and then once they say this new innovation, this new technology, this new automation, this new process is ready to roll out company-wide, they do it. So there's not necessarily a central HQ person, right, that's showing up to a facility saying, hey, this needs to be done. It's people that they've been working with in the manufacturing team for years and years and years, saying that, hey, we think this is a good idea. Here's the why. Here's the iterations we've gone through. Trust that our manufacturing feedback has been incorporated. And it's only been a couple of years, but we've had some really nice wins, and we're really excited. And hopefully we'll come back in the next drinktec and tell you all about the further results. But that's the program that we've outlaid to quickly disseminate and then adopt new technology.
I think Markus just mentally spoke out the formal invitation for you to come back. Definitely, Alan. We look forward to see how everything rolls out. Thank you for your take. Now, Roman, when we listen to, or when we just think of what we heard from Alan, it's never enough to adopt new technologies, right? So how do you, again, in a market, in an industry that is ever evolving and changing so quickly, how do you make sure that your new technological approaches actually translate into market advantages?
It's a great question, and one we're learning from Alan as well. So it's important to learn from friends in the industry. But our master is a consumer. So we as a Coca-Cola system, we follow the consumer. So we follow all of you basically, who are here and who are online, because that's our mantra. But how do we do that effectively and doing it right? And as you can imagine, I talked about 200 countries, more than 200 franchisees. It's quite complex. So the aim is, in the three areas we're looking at: technical, which we're mostly seeing on the shows, technological, and we look more at finding the right consumer products and developing them quickly, and digital in what is existing now, but also what's coming with AI, what's coming with quantum computing, things we don't know and we cannot grasp today. All of that fueled by people capabilities which are ever-changing. And you mentioned ever-changing. Important is we need to take the people with us. And then quickly decide on the business validity. So all of that together sounds like, yeah, it's these three things, and you just people and business validity. It's ever being complex. So what we relentlessly work on at this point in time is on processes to replicate faster within the system, with the support of our partners, and name the factory of the future, for example. So creating a vision where the whole system can work against, because we know that the business validity is there, and really scout with effectiveness, execute quickly, and replicate as fast as you can to create actually a consumer experience which is exceptional.
He makes it sound so easy. Yeah, please.
For me, the most important thing, you heard about the complexity of the system, and it's about learning together. I mean, you cannot pick up everything that's out there, so we really have to learn together, and I think this is one of the most important takeaways. And starting somewhere, that's the other important takeaway, and strategy as a journey, and whenever you come into a cul-de-sac, you adapt, and that's how we want to go into the future. It's starting somewhere and adapting along the way. That's it. For me.
And we wouldn't be there without you. You're one of the most challenging customers as well, but that's exactly what we need. And yeah, we need to listen to you and translate that into solutions and innovations, and that's the whole thing work. So I think that's the partnership we're looking for, just in a close cooperation, listening to your demands and translate that to solutions and technology.
When you say starting somewhere, Sven, do you mean that partners like the Coca-Cola company motivate you to actually really take action? Yeah. Because we like to discuss a lot in Germany, right? So yes, maybe it's more about taking action and starting somewhere. I understand. Thank you so much. So gentlemen, as you can see, we don't have that much time left. Allow me to sum up. I have two questions left. I think we can sum them up very well, because these are both future-oriented. And I was going to use these as a closing statement, or for your closing statement, so perhaps we can just pack them into one answer, if you may, a brief answer. Looking towards the future, and since today is all about visions, let me ask you two things. Where do you see the greatest opportunities, which are perhaps at the same time the greatest blind spots within the industry? And what is your vision for the industry for 2030? Who would like to start? I'm going to let you choose.
I'll go.
From the top.
Biggest opportunity. We're a PET shop, so we have to figure out how to recover and recycle in order for this to work long term. So that to me is a huge opportunity. Blind spot, I just said that, so I'll just move to a blind spot of, when we do look at sustainability though, it's really about the water. It's about energy generation. It's about the packaging that we use. So making sure that we stay holistic in our view. It's about site selection and site design. So it's more than just the package, or it's more than just water. It's really all of it. It's how we treat our people, right? So it's the whole portfolio. And then in terms of 2030, you know, I hear 2030, 2035, 2040 for targets. those are all great. We should focus on those. Really about starts today though, right? So if I had a wish, it's about making sure that it's about making sure that we don't just leave an environment where our kids can survive. It's really about where our kids can thrive.
Thank you for that, Alan. Let's continue with Roman.
Well said, Alan. I think I'll quickly go into the opportunity, and that's a message, I think, to the industry. We love our metal. Everybody loves the metal. But I think at the end of the day, what are we trying to achieve? We're trying to motivate our people in order to be more effective and efficient every day. And that's part of having fun at work. If you know that your basics can be fulfilled. And that's, I think, when we talk about innovation and 2030 innovation, think about the operator, think about the team leaders, think about the plant managers, the quality managers, how to make their life easier and reduce complexity. That will drive business at the end of the day. And the blind spot for me, we've seen big advancements within the four walls of a plant. At the end of the day, our business is to produce products and basically sell them to the consumer. Bring them to the consumer. So there's a lot of an end-to-end supply chain complexity outside of these four walls where we have to link in over the long term and to do this seamlessly. Processes are too complex around the supply chain at this point in time. I think it's a blind spot at this point in time, and we see some green shoots, early ones, but that's really something I think we as an industry have to work really diligently on to drive that end-to-end complexity down. And one wish. Actually, I'm never good with one wish. My parents were never lucky with that, actually, when I was a child for Christmas.
Try.
So on the sustainability side, I repeat myself on that, really raising the scientific voice together in order really to drive the right and reasonable decisions together, because that will drive the right things together and will thrive actually into the future. Technologically, will repeat myself faster. 2030 is around the corner, so I will not be too far out. Plug and play, vertical startups.
One wish.
It was one. We're running out of time, Roman.
Real-time activity-based costing on your line.
More time for panels is my wish. On to you, Matthias, briefly,
yes,
please.
so let me start with the blind spots. They are called blind spots for a reason. So if we would know where our blind spots were, they wouldn't be blind spots anymore. And this is why we are heavily investing in our ecosystem, in scouting, in talking to partners like Krones, to really understand what is driving the industry, what is driving change, investing in new technologies like precision fermentation, like AI, like digital automation, to really try to be ahead in the game and have some bets out there to see what is developing and what will influence the industry in the future. And this is really something, I think, which is becoming more and more essential, not trying to do it all yourself, but to partner up, to work globally with different partners to see what is going on there, because the world gets too complex. If you go for a wish, from a dairy perspective, milk is a great and nutritious food. And if we do life cycle analysis, whenever we do it and we link carbon footprints to nutrition, then a lot of these animal-based foods turn out pretty well. Especially milk turns out pretty well in comparison to many of the other options. And my wish really would be to move away from sustainability being single-focused on carbon emissions only, but looking into nutrition, into communities, looking into biodiversity. And water is coming up strongly, but the other aspects are still very hardly put into life cycle assessments, also because it's much more difficult than counting up the carbon numbers. But that would be my wish, to have a more holistic view and move away from simple single-sided solutions.
Thank you so much, Matthias. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you all, and especially thank you to our partners for all of these incredibly valuable, very interesting insights. We appreciate you being here today, and we're going to hurry off stage and basically hand it over to Desiree and to Matthias, because you are now going to move into your keynote, and I would like to invite everyone to stick around to hear more as Matthias dives even deeper into product innovation. Thank you so much for your attention, and enjoy the rest of your stay here at Krones on our last day of drinktec. Let's hear it for the panelists. Thank you.